Hello and welcome back to Board Crazy. I am D, and today I'm going to be reviewing Undaunted North Africa with
Bully Will Johnston, the invincible, undefeated, Undaunted pro.
just nothing true about any of that.
Let's get to it.
Well, okay, fine. Before we actually do the review, once more we're going to be running my introduction to the game from our gameplay video that sort of goes over the new elements that are introduced in this game. So here that goes. Undaunted North Africa is a game for 2 players, designed by David Thompson and Trevor Benjamin, and published by Osprey Games. This is a sequel to Undaunted Normandy, set in the North African theater of World War II, pitting the British long-range desert group against the forces of the Italian army. Most of the mechanics from Normandy return here unchanged, so I'm going to be focusing on the new elements of the game in this introduction. But if you're unfamiliar and kind of want to see that in action, you can check out one of our other videos of Undaunted Normandy, which should be linked to down below. Probably the biggest new feature for North Africa is the inclusion of vehicles, each of which can seat up to 3 soldiers. There are trucks, a scout car, and even a tank that may or may not be in play depending on the scenario. In addition to providing new, unique actions, these vehicles also provide players with more options they can take when taking their turns. For example, when a player plays a card for a soldier who is seated in a vehicle, they may choose to either perform one of that soldier's usual actions or one of the actions for the seat that soldier is occupying. Also, players may have soldiers enter or exit a vehicle or move to another unoccupied seat in a vehicle either before or after they take their action. There is also the new option to forgo any action in order to have 2 soldiers in the same vehicle swap seats. Of course, vehicles can also be attacked. Each vehicle comes with a critical threshold, which is how many hits it can take before being disabled. A disabled vehicle cannot be used in any way until it is repaired. And if a vehicle takes damage equal to its integrity value, it is destroyed entirely and removed from the game. Furthermore, each time a vehicle is successfully attacked, 1 soldier inside it takes an injury and 1 card is removed from the game. That last bit is important to note because casualties are now more severe in North Africa. If at any point a command counter must be removed from the board, all associated cards for that counter are also removed from the game entirely. There is no longer the option to return a command counter to the board via bolstering. Lastly, it's worth mentioning that there are new victory conditions. Objective points return, but these are now often claimed via structures, which get placed on the board during setup. The Brits score structures by destroying them, while the Italians score by controlling their tiles. Entirely new to North Africa, however, are escapes and neutralizing enemies. These require specific command counters or a specific number of command counters to either escape the board via a certain tile or be removed from the game via injuries. Now, I think I've done enough talking. Let's get started. All right,
We return.
we return indeed, Will, to discuss Undaunted North Africa. Fair to say, is it that Undaunted Normandy is one of your favorite games?
Was in my top 3, I believe. I should be able to remember this. But yes, it is one of our favorite games. If you watch our top 10 favorite games ever, it is on there for me. Definitely some anticipation.
Yeah.
There was anticipation and maybe some expectations coming into this.
I like Normandy too. I had some qualms with it. I was a bit cooler on it than you were. But
this is not Normandy 2, D. This is North Africa.
Great stuff. Okay, so yeah, I guess we could start. I think it's worth mentioning that even though I would say the core of the gameplay is unchanged.
Yes.
Here in North Africa from Normandy, I do think that the subtle tweaks that were made for this game make it like a really distinct experience. Mm-hmm. This is not more of the same with Normandy.
Normandy. Yes and no. The core deck building gameplay and trying to maximize what you can get out of your deck and limiting your fogs of war, all that remains, but I agree with you. It
feels different.
The gameplay experience, and I'm sure we'll get to this, but it does feel different, especially when it comes to pacing.
Yeah. The first thing I would mention is that if I have a major complaint of Normandy, like my only real complaint of Normandy is that at times the game could be quite sluggish.
Yes.
I thought, it could be difficult to maneuver around the board, difficult to accomplish whatever your objective is, and the game ended up feeling, I think, longer often than I would have liked it to.
Especially the more complex scenarios can take a while.
Yeah, especially for a game like that where, like the actual, like the gameplay, the mechanics don't really evolve at all in a single session. You'll get new stuff as you continue to play.
Yeah, okay.
But like in a single game, you have the cards you have. You might be able to add some, but for the most part, you're doing the same thing over and over again. So like the length was kind of an issue. And it felt like here in North Africa, basically everything that was either added or
adjusted.
Or even subtracted to some degree.
Okay, yeah.
It felt like it was with that in mind, like addressing that possible complaint.
Yeah.
To sort of
streamline.
Yeah, streamline, speed up the proceedings a little bit, pick up the pace. And I'm pretty thrilled about that.
I am too, for the most part.
The vehicles, admittedly, a bit of a layup for the developers. Like, you're not going to make a game in the North African campaign without vehicles.
Exactly.
And they, as you would expect, introduce much more maneuverability into the game than was present in Normandy. But there are other decisions that are unrelated to the theme that were just strictly like game design decisions that also, I think, really meaningfully affect how the game plays.
Such as?
Okay. So, like, the objectives, for example, are much, I guess, simpler is a perfectly fine descriptor. They're simpler in this game than they were in Normandy.
Yeah.
Whereas in Normandy, you might have there are scenarios in Normandy where both sides are trying to control like 10 objective points. And granted, you will start with someone you control anyway.
Yeah.
But even still, it's a lot. It takes a while to get there. In this game, you're never really going for more than 2 when you are going for objective points. It's more focused. There's not like this wide swath. You're in the desert. There's not like a lot of strongholds.
Yeah, and I think that's also to reflect it's also to reflect the small scale nature that was at least the combat that the LRDG, the Long Range Desert Group, experienced. They weren't a unit that would move around in numbers. The whole thing was they would take, a handful of scout cars into the desert, ride in, sabotage, and ride out.
But also, as far as like neutralizing enemies, like in Normandy, you've got the pin mechanic. You have to pin the enemy rifleman by basically just removing their command counters from the game. But in that game, each rifle squad had 5 cards.
Yep.
Which means you could be trying to remove 10, 15 cards from the game, and there was a respawn mechanic for the command counters. If they were removed, if you could still bolster those cards back in. That's changed now, because in this game, the command counter represents a person rather than a squad. It's the same person.
It's almost like hit points. Like every time you remove a card, they're taking a wound. You're not losing an entire unit.
You can bolster back while the command counter is still on the board, but if it's removed, they're done.
Yeah.
Right? So like that makes that easier. There's just fewer cards to have to worry about in this game. There's like 4 of each at most that you might have to worry about. Yeah, and also because you can easily, not easily, but it's certainly possible to neutralize a command counter from the board before your opponent's be able to bolster it fully.
Yeah.
So you may only have to remove 1 or 2 cards to get that objective. So it's everything. Like it's all so much. I don't know. So much simpler.
No, I mean you're right.
But not in like a dumbed down way. It's just like it felt like kind of laborious in Normandy, and here it makes sense. So I guess we could talk about the vehicles a bit more, obviously, since they are part of this discussion. What are your general thoughts on the vehicles?
Well, we already talked about how they help with the pace of play. You can move. I really appreciate being able to move sometimes up to 3 if you're playing as the Brits at once. It feels like an enormous thing to do in the moment, even moving 2 at a time, compared to Normandy, where it was this constant slog of scouting, moving, scouting, moving. In this game, it's you can if you're the Italians, you can use the plane to scout spots without even sending a car or a unit there. True. The navigating action, sometimes you can navigate up to 3 spots away, which allows you to move quicker the next time you draw the driver card. Just all that stuff. It thematically makes sense, and I like how it affects the pace of play.
I think it's fun though.
Yeah,
I think I like the little varieties between each vehicle, the different actions that each seat can provide the person sitting in it. And I think there's just I feel like it's the sort of thing, like introducing something as sort of major as that could very easily have been over-designed or over-complicated.
It could have made the game messy, yes, and over.
But they kept it simple and it works perfectly. Like it fits in seamlessly with the existing framework of the game, basically.
Yeah.
You know, you want to get into or out of a car, you have a free action to do that. They don't there's no action to
get in, get out,
or something like that. If you're in a car, you can either use your normal weapon or you can do some special action for the seat. Everything is just it makes sense. And it's not over designed, and I really appreciate that.
You know, there is only one tank in the game. I feel like some people might be disappointed about that, but
I think there might be an expansion coming at some point for that sort of stuff. But yeah,
well, they're adding reinforcement expansion. Yes. But at the moment, there's only one tank. But I think that's good because it wouldn't make sense for the British to have a tank.
Not what they're doing, no.
No. I understand that people want there to be tank battles and whatnot, but it wouldn't be appropriate with what the game's setting and theme is. But I like how the tank is especially menacing. You know, when it is around, it obviously can deal the most damage. And I just like how it affects the game overall. There wasn't anything in Normandy like that where it's just like, well, I got to avoid that, or conversely, I have to take that out now, early, or neutralize its ability to move at least.
And wisely, I think each seat in the tank is actually specialized. That's the one vehicle where you can't just kind of move people around however you'd like. You have to have them where they need to be. And then if the tank is destroyed, those guys are they're almost useless.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, well incorporated.
Yes.
I do really like the detail of each command counter representing just a person in this game, which we talked about a little bit ago. But I think, while I do miss the variety of the different names on the cards and stuff and the art, I think from a mechanical standpoint, I think it, for me at least, your mileage is going to vary on this, but for me at least, I think it makes the game a bit better because it makes things. There's a greater focus on tactics in this game than just straight up strategy, which I think Normandy mainly had, where it's a lot of it's just figuring out your deck. What cards to put in there, possibly remove, and so on. But in this, you can't do that because there's no squads in this game. And they're if you're the Italians, you get the tank people and the other people, but that's about the long and short of it. But so as opposed to Normandy, where you've got Squad A rifleman, Squad B rifleman, possibly Squad C rifleman. In this game, you just have a rifleman. Yeah. And so every time you play that card, you're gonna be activating that one command counter. There's no worry about maybe polluting your deck with bad cards, or cards that get kind of unlucky if your opponent has manages to neutralize a certain group.
Yeah. There's never gonna be that moment where you think, oh, I can bolster Squad B. Wait, nope, he can only bolster Squad C, and I messed up my strategy because I wasn't paying attention to the designations on the cards. Yes, it keeps it simpler, and it makes it easier then to be more tactical. Yeah, because you don't have to think so much about things.
Absolutely, it's snappier. It's more direct. So you're more concerned with what you're doing on the board than what you're doing with your deck.
Back to your original point, though, about each card representing just a single person and how many hits they can take, and not so much. I do think, though, that
it's a bit more personal.
It's more personal, but I feel like I had more. I feel like the game of Undaunted Normandy resonated with me more emotionally. The idea that when I lost a rifleman, well, that guy is dead. Yeah, and it was I'm just saying, I know some people wouldn't want that mechanic in their game because it's this is a lighter war game. It might be more for people who aren't looking for that kind of reality in their games, and I understand that. But just like with war movies, I don't like it when sometimes they're a little bit reductive of what war is. So I kind of liked Undaunted Normandy and the fact that you would take casualties, and you get it's personalized cards, so when you lose them, it feels So in this game, you don't necessarily have that so much. Even to me, when I remove the counter from the game, it feels more oh, well, they just got wounded so badly they got stretchered out. It never feels like it never feels like you're actually taking casualties. So I think hardcore war gamers should keep that in mind, that this game is definitely meant to not push the buttons in that sense.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah. But I feel like maybe more so than in Normandy, kind of because what you were referring to there. Like I feel like some of the end game, moments in this feel ridiculous compared to Normandy.
Yes.
Like there are times where you reach the end of the game because you've met the objective laid out for you. Mm-hmm. But if this were in real life, you'd be toast because the next turn the other team would go again.
Attack. Yes.
And it's possible in this game, especially in situations where you're going for objective points, to kind of just rush to the finish and get there, but leave yourself in a situation where in real life that controlling soldier or whoever would just be dead meat.
Yes, I would say that there can be some underwhelming moments, and you're right, it doesn't make any sense then that there would be no counterattack, because there have been no wounds dealt.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the other team wouldn't just be like, oh, well, they got to that fort, we're done.
Yeah, I would say if there is a point in favor of Normandy's more glacial pace, I would say it's that at the end of each of those scenarios, usually it feels like there's been some attrition. It feels like a fight has happened.
Yes.
So even if it doesn't maybe make complete sense that the fight would stop at that point, at least it feels like there might be a reason for the other side to retreat.
Yeah, most likely they have taken casualties, and it'd be at this point they could have decided, well, like we'll take too many trying to reclaim that point. We're going to pull out. Yeah. And that's. Yeah, I agree with you that in Undaunted Normandy, at the end of a battle or at the end of a game, even if it's quick, it still feels like things happen. Yeah. This game can't end too fast.
This game,
yeah.
Also,
it is possible.
To that point, you could, on the very first turn of this game,
before your opponent even has a chance to go.
In some scenarios, it would be possible to remove all of the cards that they are required to achieve their objective.
Yeah, that they require to achieve their objective.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like if it's like a demolition thing, if you can get a couple lucky shots off in the beginning of the game, and just remove a demolition expert from the game.
Yeah, if your opponent starts with one engineer, and your opponent has a sniper or a machine gunner and a warrant officer or one of those officers that can inspire, you could theoretically hit it twice by rolling zeros.
Yeah.
And just remove it outright. Now, the odds of that happening are extremely slim.
It'd be a terrible play by the person doing that.
But it is completely possible.
Absolutely possible. It just struck me as strange because there is no way to bolster a command counter back on the board that can happen in this game. That cannot happen in Normandy.
I mean, your opponent could still win, I think, in that situation. They would just have to neutralize their enemy's potential to win at that point.
I think the game looks really cool this time around.
I agree with you.
The map, I think, more so than in Normandy. I feel like the features are
a bit more varied. There's oases and hills and rocks.
And there's
campsites, forts.
Yeah, it's like a town almost. I guess we talked about the new cards.
I'm trying to think.
The new specialists, I think, are all pretty cool.
I like the engineers, the saboteurs, the sergeants. It's just there's a lot more variance. It feels like like the recon plane for the Italians. I really enjoy. The various things that can do. Of course, all the some of the vehicles come with entirely new things they can do, like navigate and anti-tank and what have you. I think there isn't an addition to this game that I don't like, honestly. Yeah, I agree with you, D. I really just don't think there's much in here that they added.
No.
That you can complain about.
In fact, I would, if anything, if we were to go back to Normandy at this point, I'd probably want to maybe incorporate some of the rule changes about capturing objective points, where you don't have to. If an enemy soldier is on the space but they don't control the space, you can just claim it.
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, it was a really good change. That makes sense.
Yeah,
why not?
Yeah. Production-wise, I think it's what you expect.
It's basically the same as Normandy,
these aren't super expensive games.
No, they're not.
So they're designed, it's all cardboard and card stock and then, plastic dice, but it is what it needs to be. I did notice a few things about the production.
Card quality isn't great?
Yeah, the card quality isn't great.
Frame.
There's a few of mine, a few of my Fogs of Wars are just slightly bigger. I'm talking a 0.5 millimeter bigger maybe. Than the other cards. But that makes it weird when you're holding them all together. You can feel almost where the Fogs of War are. So I have to almost consciously not pay attention to that. I also noticed that on the back, if you hold them up to the light, some of my cards they're supposed to be, or not my cards. Some of the cards aren't exactly the same exact shade. Mm-hmm. So like some are less yellow, some are more yellow. That could be. Someone wanted to be a jerk. They could study the backs of the cards and learn which ones are fainter, and that's just like I just like more consistency in the cut and whatnot. But that that happens.
All right, shall we wrap it up? We'll give this game a score.
Yes, final thoughts and a score.
All right. I feel like whether or not one prefers Normandy or North Africa, it's very much going to come down to preference. I feel like there's legitimate arguments for both. If you are someone who really enjoyed the strategic deck building element of Normandy, I could see you liking this game less because it's definitely less of an emphasis this time around. Also, thematically, obviously, you might just prefer Normandy to this one for any number of reasons. Personally, as someone who doesn't really find the theme all that compelling, just because I think World War II is kind of played out, I much prefer this game, though.
Yeah, North Africa is not a theater you see very often in anything.
No, not even just for thematic reasons. I think just strictly for gameplay reasons. I think this is much more my speed, which is... I should say the speed is faster. Which isn't to say that I dislike slow games. I just feel like it's better... The pace of the game better fits the content. Yeah, and I think just a lot of the additions are fun. I like having the vehicles at my disposal. I like having... the more varied units that you get at your disposal, and so generally speaking, this is if I had to take one or the other, I'm definitely taking this one because I do really like the gameplay of the Undaunted series. But this one I think is a marked improvement. I believe I gave Normandy 4 stars out of 5. I do like that game. I hope I don't feel like I'm ragging on it too much. I do think it's a really good game, but I'm going to give this a 4.5 out of 5.
Wow.
This is really good.
Yeah, I enjoy this a lot as well. I think in many cases in this game, it's almost addition by subtraction. Like fewer stipulations and caveats. Just streamlined gameplay. They made this really smart... I forgot to mention this. They made this really smart move. I've read on the first page being like, here are all the changes from Undaunted Normandy. Yeah. So if you're familiar with the first one, it doesn't take long to get right into this one.
No, it's very easy to learn.
So it's stuff like that. Very savvy design decisions to get people right into the action, whether they know the core gameplay or not. The deck building is still just as fun and tactical as ever. Yeah, I don't have many negatives. I'm going to give this game an A. I don't remember what I gave it first, but I'm going to give this one an A. I really think that this is probably going to go down as one of the best games of 2020. If you liked Undaunted Normandy, you literally cannot go wrong with this.
I do think there will be people who like this less.
Yes, and understandably, but I could not see someone hating this and liking Undaunted Normandy. That'd be weird.
That person probably exists, but that's strange.
It's just unlikely. Yeah. So if you like Undaunted Normandy, I recommend picking this up. I think it's a worthwhile follow-up. And they also announced Undaunted Reinforcements, an expansion that's, I think, going to apply to both games.
Both games, yep.
So these games are just going to keep growing and getting better.
Yeah. But that's going to do it for this video in particular. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Social media is down below, of course. And feel free to come back again in a few days or so for our next video, which will probably be this again. It will be this again. I think the next one will be kind of short. Yes.
But the one after that is a behemoth. Yeah, we're going to keep going until you demand that we
get other things to play.
We have other games to play.
We do.
So we need to be working on those. That's the thing is right now all I want to do is play this.
Yeah.
I guess it's because I don't want to learn more rules. I just want to play this game. All right.
Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Until next time.
Yep. Bye-bye.
See ya.